Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Psychology Career Panel. The topic for today is Life After College, Navigating Education and Career Paths, the Perspectives from Diverse Professionals. We are excited to introduce our panel of professionals and graduate students in the field of psychology. We have Phillip Boeye, a clinical social worker at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Dr. Nikki Jarquin, Head of Counseling Department of a public high school in Maryland, Selena Servellon, Social Emotional Wellness Specialist at Sheppard, Pratt in the Washington, DC-Baltimore area, Henri Mandidez, a second-year Ph.D. student studying IO psychology at SUNY Albany, and Erik Jones, Program and Management Analyst at the U.S. Department of Education. We will also ask individualized questions to each panelist to gain a deeper understanding of their unique perspectives and experiences. We will begin by asking all panelists what inspired them to pursue a career in their field and how they decided on their specific career path. We will also explore topics such as the challenges and strategies for navigating their respective roles during the pandemic, the types of interventions and strategies used to support clients in social emotional wellness, and advice for networking, building professional relationships in the field. We hope that the insights from our panelists will be informative and helpful for those interested in pursuing a career in psychology. Now, the first question I'm going to ask all 5 panelists, and we have a time limit of 2 to 3 minutes for each panelist to answer. Now, what inspired you to pursue a career in your field, and how did you decide on your specific career path? We're going to start with Dr. Jarquin.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm a professional high school counselor in Montgomery County Public Schools, and I finished my degree in psychology at UMBC at Shady Grove. I think it was at this point, 2006. So there was only 2 buildings there when I was there. And then I knew I wanted to work with adolescents, and in trying to figure out how to do that, I did a lot of research while I was in school, and then I found a lot of master's programs in professional school counseling. So then I applied and got in, and I knew that I'd have an opportunity to work with kids like full time by doing that. And so during my internship is when I really realized that I loved it and that I wanted to work with teenagers. And so now as a professional school counselor, that is what I do. I work with kids all day long. They have a lot of feelings and my days are never dull. It is always something different. And so it's been a wonderful experience. So every time I talk to people who are in the degree of psychology, if I know that they want to work with kids and they want somewhere where things they'll never be bored, I always encourage them to get a degree in school counseling because it's where it's at.
Well, that's pretty awesome. Thank you. Erik Jones?
Okay, so the question was like, why did I get a psychology degree? Like what?
Yes, what inspired you to pursue a career in your field, and how did you decide on your specific career path?
Okay, so my path was a little different. I wanted to be a therapist and a psychologist, and when I came out of school, the financial 2010, we were just getting over the 2008 crash, and a lot of jobs were a little limited, and it was tough. And I had to kind of adapt to my feet. And I realized that I looked at my grades and I was looking at other jobs, and I realized I'm pretty good macro stuff. And then I started to kind of realize I'm pretty good with business. And then I started to lean towards more that area and doing analyst stuff. And I got really good at it. And then I pursued a degree in social work. And I said, well, I'm gonna go clinical in social work. That's how it was gonna work for me. And then same thing happened again. I was clinical, but then I ended up going the macro route. And I did a couple of internships. I worked at DC Behavioral Health in the psychiatric unit. And then I worked at National Disability Rights Network and that macro unit. And I was really good at it again. And I just said, well, this is the path. It felt right. But the psychology degree helps me and where I'm at now, the Department of Education, because I have to work with all types of people, all universities across the country. And I have to work with different regions. And some places don't have as much money university-wise as others. So you have to know going in there. I had to do visits sometimes to some of these places. And just knowing how to connect with them personally, the psychology degree helps definitely.
Well, that's pretty nice. Thank you. Next, Selena Servellon.
Hello, my name is Selena. I work at Sheppard Pratt under the Therapeutic Recreation Program. So I work with a variety of students from pre-K to 12th grade. And I organize activities based on mental health goals. My career path was, I originally planned on going straight to a graduate school program, but I ended up really enjoying the work that I was doing, and I really wanted to solidify my interest, which was working with vulnerable populations, with children and their families, and just wanting to solidify my interest, and that's what I want to work with. I do enjoy working with adolescents primarily, and to hone my skills as what I want to go later down the road is to become a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's pretty cool. It seems like you and Dr. Nikki had like the same motivation to go into your field. That's awesome. Next, Phillip Boeye.
So my mother got a degree in counseling when I was very young. So that brought Freud and psychology into our house and theories and stuff like that. It affected the way I would think about things. Then later in my 30s, my own experience in psychotherapy, which was very, very positive. Some of the people that I knew who were therapists, I really looked up to them, the way they looked at things and how they could influence other people's lives. And because I'm mission oriented, I think that led me into choosing a job in the VA ultimately. But in going to school, and I think this is important, it's in following the career path, like how am I going to get to what this thing is I wanted to do? I wanted to be a neuroscientist and I wanted to be a research practitioner. But because I had gone back in my 40s, I mean, there was just a real, let's get real about some stuff here. And my psychology program director, not Dr. Alonzo, but before she said, you need to be practicing soon. So become a clinical social worker. And research in social work is really a very different thing than it is in psychology. So, but following personal values, and Dr. Jones had said, Dr. Jones' story was very interesting, really getting to know ourselves and being flexible and updating, because that's really important, I think, in finding and landing where we want to.
That really is. Thank you. And lastly, we have Henri Mandidez.
Hello, everyone. I'm Henri Mandidez, and I ended up in psychology in a bit of a roundabout way, but somewhat familiar to how many people end up in psychology. So my freshman year of undergrad, I took this science of learning class, and I loved thinking about the way people approach learning, the things about self-talk and neurological bases of behavior and all of that. And at the time I was studying engineering, and I thought, like, this is something that I could go to, like, be thinking of late at night and wake up early in the morning and think about, and something that I'd want to be doing long term. And so chose to study psychology, and most of the classes at Montgomery College were more clinically focused and more around like children and adolescents, but still the general message of like loving working with people was there for me, and so doing that and moving along, I initially was thinking about clinical or counseling psychology, but then I remember when I was a learning assistant for a statistics class, the professor I was working with had said at one point, you should think about doing something that's like teaching, like particularly around statistics, because I really love statistics. And then I was thinking, okay, so how can I use psychology and use a lot of statistics at the same time to really kind of blend these together? And that was kind of before I was more aware that psychology throughout makes use of statistics, but still wanting to have that strong blend in between. And so as I was looking at other paths, came across IO psychology and wanting to keeping that love of like improving people's lives, but taking it a little less proximally and not doing it in like a therapeutic sense where I'm carrying some of the weight of the things that are going on with personally, but improving the world of work through understanding human behavior really stood out to me, working with organizational systems and all of that. And so I decided to end up going with that instead. And when I went to UMBC for my bachelor's, it was with that in mind, and it was wonderful to take some of those classes and dig into it a little more. And eventually, along the way, I ended up here.
Awesome, that's great. Okay, now as we go on to the next question, Dr. Jarquin and Henri Mandidez. Now we know what inspired you guys to pursue a career in your field, but what motivated you to pursue your doctorate degree in your field? Dr. Jarquin, would you like to go first?
Sure. So to be clear, to be a professional school counselor, you do not need a doctoral degree. I have memories of being a college student, being an undergrad student, and when I would hear that my professors had doctorates, I was like, that's really cool. I think one day I want to have a doctorate. That is initially how the thought came into my head. And once I finished my graduate program, I became a school counselor, and 2 to 3 years after working, I love school. I love learning. And I wanted to go back to school because I missed it. I missed it after not being in school for like 2 or 3 years. So I was like, okay, what's next? So then I found a doctoral program that I thought aligned. I have a doctorate of education with a specialization in counseling. And so I had to research a problem of practice, which was very near and dear to me. And so that's essentially what I dedicated 3 years of my life doing, was researching my problem of practice. Dr. Alonso can attest that I Facebook messaged her one day, like hours and hours into my dissertation one day. And I was like, I am blanking. How do I do this statistics? And she helped me. So it's, I love learning. And so when I researched my problem of practice, I loved it even more. And then to just become kind of an expert in that has really helped me here at work, especially since I've pushed my team to be really ASCA aligned. So that's like the American School Counseling Association. And so we do pre-test, post-test, and we do statistics here. And this is all research that I learned from going through my doctoral program. So also, I have to admit, part of this was completely my ego. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to show myself and to prove to others that I could do it, that I could get a doctorate, because it was very challenging. It was a challenging program, but I did it and I was very happy. And I'm really happy that I'm not happy about this, but less than 1% of the Latino population in the United States has a doctoral degree. So I'm very proud to be one of those people.
That's nice. And this is completely off topic, but I see the GHS shirt and I'm a graduate from GHS. So that's very awesome that you're helping out.
Do you have a sibling? Because I recognize your last name.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I know. Okay. Yes.
Next, Henri Mandidez. Now, what motivated you to pursue your doctorate degree in your field?
So the minimum bar for me was always like some kind of graduate degree. And that's partially because both my parents have graduate degrees and lots of their family friends had them. So I recognized the privilege in like being in a community of people who were successful in like whatever the things that they were pursuing was. So like always knowing like at least going for like a master's. But I think that it was wanting to do this work, but have more flexibility on the way that I can pursue it, that really jumped out. You can get a master's in IO psychology and do really good work. But I wanted to get the base understanding of psychology, but then also dig into the theoretical bases of human behavior, because I love research, and the opportunities I had at UMBC and the internships that I had to do some of the research and the data analytics and things, like all kind of like came together in this picture of like, I really love learning. I really love research. And I want to really dig into this with our psychology. And, you know, I mean, being 2 years along the way, it's crazy to think that 2 years ago, I didn't have my bachelor's and I was almost finishing, and like time has flown along. But I definitely think it was just loving learning, loving the process, and wanting that flexibility. And from there, just being able to have larger impacts on the spaces that I want to be impacting, because the research I do is around like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and selection, recruitment, and training. So like impacting organizations in those ways. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting to know, because I've done some deeper research into IO psychology as well, because that's my major. So to know that just getting your master is enough for that field. So to hear that you went deeper into getting your doctorate is pretty awesome to know about that. Thank you. Phillip Boeye, as someone who has worked in various settings within the field, can you describe how your experiences have informed your approach to therapy and patient care?
Oh, okay. Where are my answers here? So I started off working as an emergency department and shock trauma social worker at University of Maryland Medical Center, and was in contact with like a lot of the hardness of life, you know, people in tough situations. And so it really brought up a lot of empathy and helped me just develop that aspect about myself. And what I really realized is that I don't know, it might seem trite, but it's really important to always be able to carry that, to have that internally when I'm working with someone. And we are all, regardless of where we might be on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all that kind of stuff, we're really always wanting to be safe as human beings. So whether that's safe in my career or safe in this relationship or whatever it is, helping a person feel safe is super important, and feel like that I'm a resource in their life as a therapist, and help them really instill a sense of hope. And that, again, that sounds trite, but I mean, that's a big part of why people are coming to me. They're not just, they want to feel hopeful about their life, which again goes into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I think that's important to kind of look at and understand that a bit. But whether I was working there or whoever I worked with, we have so many of the same basic needs. It's where are they at with it, and helping them to understand the strengths that they actually do have. And it doesn't really change depending on the population you're working with.
Yeah, you're right. Especially with this day and age, I feel like we all do need that sense of hope with everything that is going on right now. So I really love that insight. Selena Servellon, as someone who worked in the field of social emotional wellness, can you describe the types of interventions and strategies you use to support clients in this area?
Yes. So the program really is, it was created because of the pandemic, when we noticed the increase in mental health. And it was really students that had been feeling isolation, anxiety, depression, just having high levels of stress. And our referrals usually come from school counselors, therapists, and just parents themselves. The interventions that we use are, so I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So we are kind of in a gray area. Of course, I'm not a therapist, but it's similar to a mentorship program. We utilize, social emotional learning interventions. So that's activities that kind of help with emotion regulation, building healthy communication and boundaries, psychoeducation. It's a lot of like being able to feel comfortable back into like post-pandemic. We're not really over the pandemic really, but it's just trying to cope with it. And so we create activities that kind of will make it fun for the students as well. So that it could include like emotional charades, role playing. I've done mindfulness games, hiking, growth versus mindset, fixed mindset flashcards, vision boards, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding when you're seeing the students really kind of build that rapport with you and really notice that these minuscule things that you would think that is like, something that, I don't know, sometimes it just really is rewarding, I think, because the students are very able to express after discharge, and they tell you that this program really made a difference. So it just makes me continually grateful to be in this field. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That sounds like a great stress reliever. And I really do think some of us college students might need those activities. So
sure.
All right, Erik Jones, as someone who has pursued both a general studies degree and a psychology degree, can you describe how those experiences have informed your work in program and management analysis?
Yes. So the general studies degree has definitely helped when I'm working with different school populations I have to work with, different universities, going in different environments. Like I said earlier, going into places that don't have as much money, that are requesting money. So you have to kind of know the general idea of what they're trying to do. The psychology degree helps because I have to do like visits when I go up to the universities. I have to make sure that their retention rate is good, make sure that they're keeping the budgets the same and stuff. So it's kind of like an IO degree, kind of business stuff a little bit. And just making sure that everything is still functioning stuff. Like I wouldn't have, without a psychology degree, because it was, when I got it, it was easy for me to relate to people and it helped me understand like one-on-one when I'm dealing with people. A lot of part of my job is that I have to deal with some of the university project directors and stuff, and they can be a little pushy sometimes about what they want. So it's a little, I have to do a little psychology on them sometimes when I deal with them. So it definitely helps a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. I really do believe that. I think everyone should get a psychology degree so they can understand the human basics. All right, now back to Dr. Jarquin. How have you navigated the unique challenges of working as a school counselor during the pandemic, and what strategies have you found most effective in supporting students during this time?
So the pandemic was incredibly challenging for all educators. It was a time where getting in touch with students and families was very hard because I didn't have them face to face. And so we had to be like creative in the ways that we would get a hold of them. It was a lot of teamwork in order to re-engage some families and some students, because some people were just like just trying to survive, because people, parents were being laid off. Sometimes the students were the financial providers for the family because the parents couldn't work. It was a very challenging time. And after coming back into once buildings opened, the impact is still here. Kids are still significantly impacted by what occurred during the pandemic. Increases in anxiety, depression. I mean, there's a lot. Kids are struggling. So, I mean, the word that you hear everywhere in education is grace, giving kids grace, giving families grace. And that's just what we hear over and over again, and just reminding people that to extend grace to the kids, because kids went through a lot. So we do constant check-ins with kids and families. each high school, and I believe every middle school and elementary school has a student well-being team, so that we meet weekly or every other week to go over, different students and what they need. What do their families need? Do they need referrals? Do we need to do home visits? Do we need to have meetings to potentially create 504 plans for students who do have diagnoses, right? We have parent nights in order to, we cater each parent night to what the needs are at that time in the community. We are constantly, as school counselors, trying to build rapport with the community, with kids, with families. We created a wellness committee also here in the counseling department, and where we do different activities with kids throughout the school year. So those are just some of the things that we're doing, and the pandemic it's still impacting kids and families significantly.
Yeah, that is true. Thank you. Henri Mandidez, can you speak to any challenges you faced in your academic and professional pursuits in IO psychology and how you've overcome those challenges?
I think that there's several. Firstly, part of it is like a lack of knowledge, right? The lack of awareness. I think that the further I've gone into my Ph.D. And the more I've gotten to meet people and all of that and speak to them about how they came to find IO psychology, there's a very clear pattern of people not being aware of IO psychology in introductory psych classes, right? So I think the having to catch up was part of it, right? The fact that a lot of times students taking like intro psych classes are taking them freshman, sophomore year. They might have the stronger focus on like clinical like counseling means that they're more aware of them earlier on. So having to do some of that catch up was the first thing. And then I think beyond that, COVID was big. I was in the spring of my junior year of undergrad when COVID hit. And so it was, beyond the first 2 weeks where I just sat at home really irritated that I had to learn from my bedroom, it was okay, you have to adjust. So all the things that Dr. Jarquin was just talking about, like how do you then come to adjust and like trying to figure out like applying to graduate school and getting recommendation letters and doing all those things virtually, where you have to set up like a Zoom or a WebEx call or Google Meets call or send emails and things like that. So, I feel like I was always pretty proactive, but like being forced to be more proactive in those things, and like things not being fed to you, and that sort of pattern continuing. And I think that in hindsight set me up well for graduate school, just like you have to pull yourself along. And I think getting beyond those things, explaining what IO psychology is to Zimbabwean parents who don't fully grasp what the value of psychology, right? So like then you have that whole thing. But I think, coming into the program, it was more just like things just like time management. You essentially set your schedule beyond just classes you might have. If you're a teaching assistant, you have office hours, you might be grading and things like that, but you're living your life while you're doing graduate school. You have to be intentional about your time. I feel like I've been improving a lot with that. Compared to where I was in undergrad. So that, but still work needing to be done. And some days I'll walk in class and like leave it thinking, I really didn't get anything that we just talked about, for the past 3 hours. And like having to deal with that and be like, okay, well, if I don't understand this particular day of class, does that mean that I don't know anything about this material? Or is that just like the way it is the first time you hear it, and wrestling with those things? And it's just a marathon. You just you have to figure out your own pace and trying to find my pace. I'll let you know when I find it.
Well, that's good to hear. I think we're all still struggling to figure out our pace as well, especially since we're still coming out of the pandemic. Thank you. Now, next question is for all 5 panelists. How did you approach networking and building professional relationships when you were starting out in your career? Phillip, would you like to go first?
Sure. This is a really important question. I remember panicking on it when I was in school. And part of that's because I'm an introvert. So this is to those of you who might be introverted. There are a number of them in that class. I know that. So the deal is the human relationships are super important. I started them like Dr. Alonzo is an example, Katie Morris in social work, talking to professors. And then when I was talking to supervisors where I was in internships and always building up this knowledge base, but at the same time, a confidence in myself of being able to express, what I'm interested in and being authentic, being like who I am. So what I would say along those lines is to express our enthusiasm in what we're wanting to do. But like, truthfully, it's really important to be humble about it because we go in there with like I did, and so many people do go in with this like hammer of idealism. And I'm just going to tell you, like, the system just learns to absorb that in people when they're coming in new. And so we need to learn to temper our idealism appropriately in talking with people. And like, I think that helps to be humble in that regard. Another thing, don't be afraid to show what we don't know, honestly. So I'm not sure if it was Nikki or, yeah, Nikki did, about like ego. Ego is a big ass thing for me. Sorry for the language. I meant to work with veterans. And it's kind of got to go at some point. So don't be afraid to, and accept that we don't know what we don't know, and my role is to learn, but also show like, I want to join this. And honestly, whether we're clinicians or research is a little different in that people are looking for funding, but it doesn't matter if people are enthusiastic about what we do, we want to join with them. Okay. So that's really, really important. The last thing I would say is just accept that it takes time and that we will continue to grow and get better and better at networking over time. And it will happen, but you can't avoid it. And don't hope for the one great relationship to break open the heavens. It just doesn't work that way.
You're right. Thank you, Phillip. Henri Mandidez, would you like to go next?
Sure. So my philosophy around networking and building relationships has always been ask questions. And if the answers don't make sense, ask some more questions. Because, to what Phil was just saying, like you have to at some point recognize that you won't know everything. And you have to be okay with then going on and like asking someone who might know more about that particular thing. And so like approaching it mostly around that, like reaching out to professors, whether it was before class or after class, not being overly like idealistic, but like saying, I want to get my doctoral degree in psychology, and I'm generally interested in this kind of work. What are your thoughts? How do you get there, right? Because the nice thing about a lot of the faculty members is that they've pursued doctoral degrees themselves, right? And there's a whole argument that, well, I mean, it might have been however many years beforehand, but there's still some value in the process itself and going through that and having some more awareness and other people that they might know. So, just doing a lot of that. Dr. Knight isn't here right now, but like from speaking with him, I got in contact with a lot of really good people, and got in contact with this group called like Black Psychology, which the name describes itself. And it's this like wonderful nonprofit that's specifically building up and making sure that Blacks in our psychology are being recognized for the work that they're doing, and that there's support for those seeking to pursue that as well. And so like, spaces like that and asking more questions in those spaces too, and meeting other graduate students who are going along the way. And also just like coming into the conversations with questions written beforehand. And then also just being like, like you are somewhere where I want to be eventually. Can you let me know how you got there, right? Like walk me through it, essentially. And to get that picture and taking the things that I feel like really resonate with me and that I feel like I can really use, and leaving the things that I don't feel like I can use. Because sometimes it's just as valuable to not take some of the advice that might be received as it is to take it. And it's an honor to be able to learn from the people around you. So coming into it with that mentality of gratitude, and for people giving you their time, but also knowing that you're someone that has places you want to go, going from there.
And thank you for that insight. Selena, would you like to go next?
Yes. So again, I'm gonna probably piggyback off of Phil and Henri, how important it is to just be open-minded and really coming into a field very curious and very, like just being curious and really delving into the community that you have, sort of like that, it's very much a privilege to be around people that have different backgrounds. Thankfully, I'm surrounded by a team that, are social workers, clinical therapists. They work in the schools as well. So it's been a really rewarding experience to really have the ability to communicate like what they do, how their path was. Again, also like talking to your professors. I think that's something that people should utilize more, going into office hours and asking their questions, asking how they got into their career. Also utilizing resources such as LinkedIn early on. And I know the University of Shady Grove has a career and internship service center. So really taking advantage of the resources that you have, I think that really makes a difference in your learning about professionalism and how you can put yourself out there and advocate for yourself. I think that's something that a lot of people feel intimidated by. And, like, again, like just getting to know yourself and your strengths and weaknesses, that makes you a valuable person in this career field, because there's something called compassion fatigue. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced something like burnout. And so, yeah, I think it's just that's what I can offer where I've been at. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Next, Erik Jones.
I would say, based on networking experiences from early in my career, maintain flexibility, be open to all types of experiences when it comes to psychology. What I had to learn from my experience was that I thought just straight psychology. That's the only route I can go if I want to be a clinical person. But then I started realizing, well, if you want to get another master's or a doctorate, you can do counseling psychology, you can do educational psychology, you can do IO psychology. So you broaden yourself open more. And I had to learn to kind of maintain your contacts, like everybody's been saying, maintain your relationships, don't burn your bridges. And even if you have to deal with someone that you may not want to deal with, they may actually be able to help you in the long run. And you have to maintain flexibility and stuff when you're dealing with people in the workplace. And just be open, because some jobs, you may not think they're clinical, but then it can turn into a clinical job sometimes. And that happens sometimes too.
Thank you. Dr. Jarquin?
Yeah, so in the education field, they typically pair you with a mentor when you're hired. And so that's always like the place to start is with your mentor. And we also have in the education field that if you're a new hire, they always have what's called NEO, which is new educator, NEO, new educator onboarding. That's probably what it is, I'm guessing. And anyway, so they have that before the school year starts. And so then they break you up by your groups. And so like all the school counselors would be in one group and it's all new people. And the people who present are people like me who've been in the county for a longer period of time. So we're there to give advice, to swap phone numbers, to talk, to answer questions. And so that's a great time to connect with people who are new. Additionally, social media is a great way to network. That's why I'm probably here today. Probably Dr. Alonso saw me on Facebook feed and was like, let me ask her. So so social media is also great. And there's always like, little private Facebook groups for different types of jobs. I know that we have one, and it's also very helpful when people are asking questions. Your classmates are also a great way to network with, which you guys are experiencing right now as students. But yeah, I still keep in contact with students from my undergrad, from grad, and from my doctoral program. So that's also a fabulous way to network. Also, since Latinos in education are always underrepresented in professional school staff, in our county specifically, there's only 7% of us that are professional school staff in a majority school district. So we started actually an organization called Poder Educators, which we connect with other Latino educators in our county. And that's a fabulous way to network and to meet other people. So that's a little bit of what I have to share on that.
Thank you. So to basically conclude on everything you guys said is to use all the resources that we have around us and to also keep our connections close at hand in case we need them for anything. Thank you for that. Now, the last question that I have for the panelists as well, looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self as you were starting out in your respective careers? Erik Jones, would you like to go first?
So there's a lot of stuff I would change. The lines on those there. I would definitely not be stubborn, be more open, flexible, and just be not try to take everything on by myself. I was very individualistic. I can take everything on. I have resources. I can find everything on my own, and I'm pretty good at it. But it's a lot easier when you have people supporting you and helping you. And when I was younger in my 20s, I would try to do everything on my own, and I would definitely change that. Do even more volunteer work than I was doing before, build more connections, and probably don't get caught up in deadlines. That like I have to have this done at this time, or I'm 28 and this has to happen in my life right now. Sometimes it doesn't work like that, and you have to be flexible and open to know that don't get caught up in deadlines. Your path is your path. Don't fight it.
Thank you for that. That is great advice, because I feel like we all do get caught up in deadlines, and especially in our 20s, we do tend to, try to do things on our own. Speaking from personal experience as well. Selena, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm gonna also agree with Erik. I think navigating post-undergrad, I very much am a type A person. So I was like, I gotta get this done. I gotta be here, whatever. But I think it would just be to be kind to myself and compassionate. I think something, again, as we were talking as a group, is just getting to know yourself. And of course, everybody was kind of going, well, from personal experience, I'll just say that I struggled a lot during the pandemic. My mental health was declining. So I took time, of course, I took a break before going into before getting into grad school, I just wanted to like really focus on myself, get, better, like my mental health, really, and then solidify like where I wanted to take my next steps. And I pretty much I think I would have just told myself to really trust the process, become mindful and present and like the things that I'm doing now, because I can't remember who said this, but they said, I think they were saying that, when you're somewhere, you don't think that it could be, I think it was also Erik, where you don't know, like if you're going to be doing other work requirements that are like clinical or like statistical, analytical. And that's really like where I'm at. I did not think I was going to be doing pre and post test, and it's really like I'm not a clinician, I'm not a therapist yet, but I'm gaining this experience of like observing symptoms of students and doing pre and post tests and checking like how much of a progress or if there wasn't, gaining feedback from the students and my supervisors, getting to understand like, okay, what can I have done differently? And so it's really great to just really understand that. And so another thing I would have told myself is to really encourage myself to go into office hours more and understand like how different professors went into different career paths. And I probably would have also told myself to go ahead and do that research course that I wanted to do with Dr. Alonso. I wish I could have done that, and I wish I could have really explored that, because that's what I'm getting into now. I really want to do research, and so I'm really delving into the research opportunities that I have around me. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Henri, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I would say don't pursue perfection. It's probably the biggest thing. I'm a big perfectionist, and I'm still a big perfectionist in the things that I do and the way that I approach everything. And so I can remember there's two different ways I can think about it. When I was originally applying for graduate school, I remember there was one particular day after I'd written my first draft of my personal statement, and I went to the writing center at USG, and I had, I think it was Mary Gallagher, now Dr. Gallagher, like look at it, and she, in the nicest way possible, ripped it apart. Was like, I don't really see like what is okay, like this is information here. What is the why? And I remember I got on a call and I was just like, this is annoying, right? This is like annoying and it's irritating. And then this conversation then went to this place of like, I don't have the same amount of research experience that other students applying PhD programs might have, or things like that. And, like my grades might not be as high or something like that. I remember being told like, okay, well, that might be true, but you're where you are now. And so I think remembering that, remembering to trust the level of the training that I've received and the lessons that I have learned, and just meeting the moment and stepping into that. Like last Friday, I successfully defended my master's thesis, and it was like right before that as well. It was like this same sort of thought of like, what if I get these questions that I don't have answers to? What if I get, what if like there's something about some construct that doesn't make any sense to me or whatever? But then it was also the same thing of like trusting yourself along the way, that you've done the work that you need to do to be as successful as you need to be. And if there are things you don't know, then there are things you don't know. Like with research, there's always limitations in every study. And so being okay with those limitations and then being like, you know what, I made the best study I could and I walk with it.
Thank you. Next, Dr. Jarquin.
I would tell myself it'll still be there tomorrow. leave your office and go home. It's still going to be there. That's probably what I would do, and not be shy in asking for help if you need help, because your mental health is incredibly important. And your family comes first. I think that's the advice I would give myself.
That's pretty good advice, I would say. And lastly, Phillip.
Great advice all around. I think to trust the power of relationships and their ability to get things done, and to hone me as a therapist or whatever professional is really important. So to continue to build those. I think it's important, especially early on, to we have to kind of trust our instincts and believe in ourselves. Like, if this is really what I want to do, or I really want to kind of pursue this research or something, you have to believe in it, because if we're not doing that, eventually it starts to show up. At the same time, I mean, this was said a few times, we have to be flexible and learn to adapt to stuff. And part of that is just chilling out. And part of that, and that's really about accepting failures and losses. Failures are, as we know now, are really, really important. But there are also other losses that accrue in a career. So, like, for example, I talked about wanting to be a neuroscientist, and that meant becoming a psychologist first. And it was just like, it wasn't really practical. And that still can bother me if I think about it. There are just doors that open and doors that close. And it's just part of the human journey to just accept it and keep moving. And what are you going to do? And the last thing I would say is, find a way to personally enjoy your career in a very private way. Like I have research in the back of my mind all the time about my veterans. And eventually I'll probably move forward on it to some degree. So it's not just about salary. It's not just about prestige or any of that kind of stuff. There has to be this thing of man, that was very meaningful to me personally. No one else. I don't even have to explain it to somebody else. Personally, it was just, I really enjoyed doing that. It's my life. It's my time of my life, right? So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for sharing your insights and speaking your opinions and thoughts. So that was the last question that I had. I am going to leave the floor to our participants/students to go ahead and ask any questions to the panelists if you have any.
I actually had a little question for all of our panelists. I know that a lot of students here at Shady Grove are interested in volunteer opportunities or working with professionals, especially people who graduated from UMBC, because they can be amazing mentors. So I was wondering if anybody has any opportunities that you might like to bring up right now.
There's always opportunities volunteering with the Salvation Army. There's opportunity to volunteer Disability Rights Network, volunteering. And there's a couple always nonprofits. You could do a phone interview, or you could just show up and say, "Have you got any opportunities to volunteer?" And I go to this place, Martha's Table in Washington, DC. They're always looking for volunteers to help out.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So SIOP, the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology, always has volunteer opportunities for students. They have different committees that do anything from business and marketing to social media to business development and building pathways for students and things like that. So there's always room for volunteers there, and they're happy to take undergraduates. And you meet all kinds of other grad students or practitioners and faculty members. Blacks.io and does that kind of stuff as well. There's also there's Latinos in neuropsychology and Asians in neuropsychology that also do a lot of wonderful work. And so there's lots of really good opportunities, and I'm sure that other people in my network have put things out, and if I come across any of those, I can send those to Dr. Lanto.
So kind of piggybacking off of the volunteering questions, I wanted to know, would you guys advise to do more than one internship during your time while you're getting your bachelor's? Because I've heard of how some students, they have only done one internship and it was hard for them to get a job, whereas other students did 2 internships and they had an easier opportunity to get a job.
I would say, I would probably say do as much internships as you can. You build a rapport, you build a relationship with them, because they probably get internships from other schools and other people coming in that want the same thing you want. So it starts getting a little competitive. So the more you can build your relationship with them, the better.
All right, thank you. And I have another question. So I know that internships and volunteering are closely similar due to the fact of building rapport experiences, but which one would you say is more detrimental, internships or volunteering experiences?
I would say, me personally, I would say probably volunteering. Internships are more strictly for you, and they direct stuff personally for you to get certain experiences. Whereas volunteer, they may treat you the wrong way, and you can probably do more than that. They try to single you at a certain level sometimes, so you have to be careful with some stuff.
Yeah, I'd back that up in the sense that, like, as he's saying, if you're volunteering, you're serving this organization. If you're an intern, yes, you're serving or helping, but it's also built in that there's structure there to help you progress. You're considered this future, hopefully, cog in the wheel, whatever, of the system. So there's a very different approach to it. And I think experience as a result.
Coming from a personal experience, I originally tried to do an internship with the Every Mind's hotline specialist. And you had to undergo like a training. And I actually didn't become one because I didn't pass the training. So it was very interesting. It was a humbling experience because I think that was my first ever rejection from like something. And I took it hard because it was also during the holidays when they told me. But again, things happen, and here I am at this position that I'm very grateful for because it's more of like something that I'm passionate in. And I was able to use that experience for an internship credit for graduating. So I actually did it with Dr. Alonso, and it was really the way that she did it, and made me reflect on the work that I was doing. And I actually continue using her her outlines sometimes just to like record like things, and it's really nice.
Yeah, I would say internships are probably more beneficial than volunteer opportunities. Well, at least like more professionally beneficial. I think they're also a little bit easier to explain on like a resume or a CV. And if a company is reading through that, it's there might be less questions asked if it was an internship as opposed to if it was a volunteer opportunity, depending on the nature of those. And then to your previous question about like how many you should do, I mean, if you can do more, then that's great, but the quality of them also matters. And if you have one really good one, then talk about that one really good one. You run with it. So.
And are you guys okay with us sharing your emails to students in case they have any questions and they want to reach out? Yes, okay, we'll do that. Thank you. Well, it seems like our time is up. I just want to say thank you guys for coming and sharing your opportunities and experience with us. I feel like it was a great insight, and I hope a lot of us got a little bit out of everything you guys said. And yeah, I just want to wish you guys a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
You too.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Tisha. You did a great job of moderating. Thank you to our participants, but most of all, of course, thank you so much to our panelists. I learned so much from hearing you. It's so wonderful to hear where you are. So many great things. And I did want to also follow up and say, I am happy to pass along any opportunities or anything additional that you want to send. So thank you again.